My final presentation is on the digital divide and its relation to social media by me, McKenna Coxey. Here are the research questions that I was looking for while doing research. Does the digital divide exist? How does social media influence this digital divide? And 3, in what direction is the internet moving to decrease the digital divide? So first, I wanted to define what is the digital divide. The digital divide is a term that refers to the gap between demographics and regions that have access to modern information and communications technology, and those that don't or have restricted access. This technology can include telephone, television, personal computers, and the internet. Here is a graphic that shows the global digital population. Over here is the total population of the world at 7.5 billion people. To the right of that is the population of internet users, which is at about 4 billion people, or 53% of the population. Next, we have active social media users, unique mobile users, and active mobile social users. This provides proof that there are some sort of digital divide that exists worldwide. Although over half the world has access to the internet, this still means that 47% of people worldwide are not internet users. So what about the other 47%? This map shows internet population and penetration in areas throughout the world. The areas in light beige color are the places where there are least amount of internet. This map shows geographically where the divide exists. You can see that China, India, most parts of Africa, and a little bit of South America are lacking the widespread use of the internet. Although the digital divide exists, there are different stages of the divide. Unlike this first graphic that I showed you, where 53% of the population are internet users and 47% are not, the digital divide is not that simple. Here is a pyramid that lays out different stages of digital literacy. First, you have access. Next, you have use. In the middle, understand. On top of that, analysis. And at the very top, create. So first, I want to talk a little bit about the bottom tier, which is access. Access to basic technology and infrastructure, distribution, and the internet. This means access to computers or a smartphone, materials to create the broadband connection, and the ability to actually connect to the internet. The next level is use. This means freedom of expression and navigation of different platforms. So, can you turn on the computer? Do you have knowledge of where to click to get to the internet? And do you have the ability to search and find what you're looking for? In the middle of the pyramid is understand. Belonging to online communities, able to synthesize information and network ideas with others. So this is the ability to use a two-way communication platform such as social media, the knowledge and ability to share credible information with others, and to understand how to acquire new information. The next level is analysis. This means being able to dissect, synthesize, and reflect on information while sharing and influencing others. So it could be picking apart information from various sources and determining meaning, or the contribution of learned information across these two-way communication platforms. And lastly, adding educated input to online discussions. And finally, at the top of the pyramid is create. This means to be informed and critical expertise use of technologies, committed to learning, social awareness, empowerment, and production of information. This could be contribution of primary information from personal experience and research, the ability to understand what type of information fits best through which channel, and becoming a known digital figure that people follow. Social media influence on the digital divide. First, I want to define what social media is. Social media are forms of electronic communication, such as websites for social networking and microblogging, through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content, such as videos. Some may claim that social media had helped to blur the lines between each level of literacy and overall the digital divide. From the previous few slides, we can see that the use of social media doesn't come until the second stage of digital literacy. Using social media requires a certain knowledge of how to use a computer and how to use the internet. Social networking sites in themselves have divides. Overall, less elite individuals do tend to engage in activities considered non or less capital enhancing. This article is saying that people with lower socioeconomic status have a lower likelihood of accessing higher capital networks across social media. People of lower social classes and people living in underdeveloped regions are assumed to be not as smart as people from higher social classes and more developed countries. This means that those areas of the globe are unlikely to use the internet even if given the opportunity, because they would not have the education in order to understand complex social networking or information searching. Here is a map of worldwide poverty. In blue are the most developed countries, green are developing countries, and red are the least developed countries. Countries that have higher poverty rate are less likely to have access to the internet. Since these certain parts of the world are living in poverty, this means that they do not have the materials to create everything in order to even have the possibility of connecting to the internet. Even if they had the ability and the materials to access the internet, some people would not want to. People have been living a certain way for so many years, it feels normal to them, and they may not see a need for change. Here I compare the poverty map to the internet population and penetration. As you can see, many countries who have low internet penetration are also largely underdeveloped. This is a graphic that I created to show the progression of the decrease of the digital divide. With a decrease in poverty, people will be more likely to have the funds to get access to the materials to create a broadband internet connection. A decrease in the poverty within countries means that countries would be considered more developed. A more developed country would mean that people have the need for internet access. Developing countries currently have little contribution to the overall world decisions. Insertion into the UN for these countries could be a key part of the success of a lessened digital divide. In the second stage, you have increased internet access. A decreased number of countries that fall below the poverty line would lead to more complex societies. Large countries have a constant supply of technological advancement. Smaller, underdeveloped countries are falling behind the rest of the world. The people who live in these underdeveloped countries will not have information about the rest of the world, and the rest of the world almost knows nothing about those people. An increase in internet access throughout the world will also create a better education of K through 12 and beyond. The third stage is a lessened digital divide gap. If most people of the world has an increase in the ability to access the internet, this will lessen the digital divide gap that we currently see. People would have a greater understanding for other parts of the world and different cultures, traditions, and thoughts. More people would feel inclined to visit these places because they would be caught up to the rest of the world and not so difficult to get to. If people have internet access, this will put them on the grid. And since they're on the grid, they are being tracked, and we can determine information about behavior trends. Studies have shown that people with lower IQ are more likely to be racist and prejudiced. Increased knowledge about the rest of the world would create less confrontation and negative stereotypes associated with people who are different. In conclusion, I will directly answer my research questions. Does the digital divide exist? Yes, 47% of the population does not have internet access. And even for the people who do have access, there are divides between them and the 5 stages of digital literacy. Second, how does social media influence the digital divide? Social media actually creates divides within platforms. Less educated people are less likely to access complex social networking sites. This is just one example of how social media divides people. And lastly, in what direction is the internet moving to decrease digital divide? The divide between the stages of digital literacy can be lessened through more inclusive platforms, and the divide between people who have access and who don't have access can be lessened by decreasing the worldwide poverty rate. Thank you.